This is a very special day. I hope that you're here more for Brody, quite honestly, than you are for me. I'm going to try to do my best, but I acknowledge the fact that I'm in second place here, which is the way it should be and everything. Josh said that we live together in the same neighborhood, and Josh, I know we talked about this one other time. You said don't bring this up in public, but I feel the need, since we're all friends here, to share this. But we have somebody in our neighborhood who kind of walks around, and the children kind of follow him. And we're not exactly sure what's going on. He seems harmless enough, but it's just a little suspicious. I tried to get a picture of him one time when I was driving by. My wife was driving, and this was as good a picture as I could get. And he was in a robe. There was a bunch of children around him. But then a few months later, I saw him at the bottom of my driveway, and I got a little better shot. There he is. Right? So if you see this guy, just so you know, if you come over to Swan Creek and you're in our neighborhood and you see this guy, just might want to keep your distance just a little bit. Okay? Now, Josh and I have a great relationship, and I always get a kick out of when he says kind things about me, because I could give him right back tenfold, because I feel so indebted to him for everything he's done for me. Everybody knows what he's done with Leading with Power, but I want to share one personal story. I got a call one day in the afternoon, this is a couple years ago. Josh says, "Hey, what are you doing? Can you go for a ride with me?" Excuse me. And I said, "Sure, where are we going?" He said, "I'll explain when we get there." He was in a very difficult situation in his life, and we walked into an office of someone that really wasn't trying to help him, and there were lawyers involved, and I saw Josh Korick sit at a table and listen to some really mean, untrue, nasty things said about him that could have ruined him financially. And that man right there sat at the table and stayed true to who he was. He loved those people unconditionally, even in that situation. And Josh, I just want to tell you that you are one of my role models, so thank you very much. Amen. And I was thinking about it. I don't listen to the radio much, but when I do, I listen to Life 102.5. Any other listeners in here, Life 102.5? Jason Gray is one of the guys that plays music on there, and or he's one of the artists. He has a song called "With Every Act of Love." And there's a lyric in there that just sits with me anytime we get in a difficult situation. And this is the lyric that I want to share, because this is the one that reminds me of you. The lyric goes, "God put a million doors in the world for his love to walk through. One of those doors is you." Thank you very much, Josh Korick.
Yeah, man.
And that's what I'm going to talk about today is, how can we all be those doors to let that love walk through in any situation, regardless of what it is. I'd like you to think about a radio station and just all the different stations that we have access to. Those towers are always broadcasting. But the question is what are we tuning to and what are we receiving? Where is our dial set to? We are always under the influence of something. Anytime we're awake, we're under the influence of something. What station are we listening to? And this was inspired by this young man, who is my youngest son, Matthew. And there was a day not too long ago where I was feeling rushed. I forgot that the boys didn't have school that day. I had a meeting with a client, and I was trying to get them ready so I could get them down to Grandma's house so that I could get out the door. And Sam, our fourth grade son, was a little agitated. He says, "Dad, why do we have to go to Grandma's?" And I said, "Well, because I have a meeting, and I forgot you guys didn't have school." And he's like, "Well, why do you have to go to that meeting?" And I said, I have to go to the meeting so I can earn money to make our lives better. And without hesitation, Matthew, our second grade son, says, "Money doesn't make our life better, Dad. Joy does." And I just sat there and I was just like, wow. I'll be honest, I'd like to think that I know a lot of things. You know, I've been a teacher and a coach most of my adult life. But I think there's a big difference between knowing something and practicing it in the moment. Would you agree? There's a lot of things we know, but the question is, what are we practicing in the moment? And here's an example of a moment where I was looking for Matthew, and I couldn't find him, and he was supposed to brush his teeth and get ready for bed. And I come around the corner, and this is what he's doing, and hopefully you can hear the volume, but I'll just tell you, there's no music playing. So,
what are you doing?
Dancing.
Okay, how's it going? What are your moves?
there's no music playing. Do you understand that? In his head, exactly. And that's the point of what I'm talking about today. What are you tuned to? What are you under the influence of right now? In this moment, what are you under the influence of? Matthew's comment about joy makes our life better made me think about, what am I doing? And this is just something personally I'm trying, and it's transforming my life right now. And I'm a math teacher by trade, so everything was about measuring things and quantifying things and all of that. But I am choosing intentionally, deliberately to measure success in joy now, and it's transforming my life. And I would encourage you to just be open to that possibility. This guy's fairly well known, Albert Einstein. This is a quote you might not be familiar with. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. So that's what we're talking about today, is that love and that joy factor. So here's some of the radio stations that I've been under the influence of at various times in my life. I don't know if anybody can relate to these, but we crave attention from others. You know, what's in it for me? We need to be right. We need to control others. We need conditions to change. We need to be perfect. We need to judge others. Raise your hand if you've ever been under the influence of one of those, at least one of those radio stations, right? I think that's part of the human experience. So this is the one I'm going to encourage you to tune into, is tune into people. PPLE, pure, positive, loving energy. That's the one that I want to tune into in each and every moment, regardless of conditions. That's not easy to do. What I want to do first here is give you an opportunity. One of the things that is the foundation of leading with power is making positive connections. This is so much more than a networking opportunity, but I want to give you just 2 minutes to make an effort to just have the opportunity to go around and just simply shake hands with somebody you don't know. Try to maybe get 4 or 5 guys and just load up with that pure positive energy, put it in your hand, and boom, just zap them with it. And just try to meet some new people here in just 2 minutes. Just get up, meet some new people, share your name, where you're from, and then go find a new friend. Okay, can we do that? All right, thank you. So tuning into people, PPLE, pure positive loving energy. When I think of that, I think of an experience I had back in 8th grade. I grew up in a small town called Ridgeway. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at. At that time, it was 500 people, 5 bars, 5 churches. That's where I learned about life balance. Right? My parents owned one of the bars. We lived upstairs, so I got a lot of education. And by 8th grade year, my parents were separated, and I was alone a lot of the time by myself. Had a new teacher that year, 8th grade Phi Ed teacher. His name was Mr. Lewis. I'll be honest, I was not in a good place in my life. I was a very angry young man, very confused and frustrated. So when Mr. Lewis thought he was going to share his discipline with us, I didn't react to that very well. I was much more interested in getting the attention from my friends. And Mr. Lewis is a pretty big guy. He's mid-20s. He was a college basketball athlete. And he's a pretty strong guy. Actually, I looked him up in the Ridgeway yearbook, and they had this picture back from the 80s, and I was surprised. That was Mr. Lewis back in the 80s. Actually, that's not Mr. Lewis. That's just how I remember him. Believe it or not, this is my cousin Travis. Okay? And if you don't believe me, my cousin Jason Stampfli's right over here. He's one of the most honest people I've ever met. Travis is my cousin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My no,
Well, okay, he's my second cousin. Okay? All right? And so, Mr. Lewis and he kicked me out of class one day. And I was very arrogant at the time, walked right in front of him, and let's just say that he grabbed my shirt and elevated my thinking. And said, "You don't go to the main office, you go to my office." And his office was in the dungeon back in the locker room where there's no windows, and there's just a door and cement walls around it. I thought that might be my last day on earth, to be honest with you. He came in, and this is what he said. "You could really be something someday, Stampfli, if you just pull your head out of your beep." Now that may not seem like much to you, but you know what I heard? Somebody cares about me. We went through that year. We had some ups and downs. There was a little archery incident where I was shooting him up in the air and wasn't supposed to, so he kicked me out of class for the unit and told me I had to pass the test in order to get out of there. He didn't know that I shot tournaments all throughout the Midwest and everything, so I aced the test, which made him more angry. But we had that kind of relationship. And anyhow, when I got to high school, he started coaching me in track. We stayed in touch, and he always told me, "You can do this, you can go to college." Nobody in my family had been to college before. He kept pouring into me. He kept believing in me. And it took me 13 years to get through college, but guess who was sitting there when I graduated? He was. Here's a more recent picture from a few years ago. This was at his son's wedding. Do you know why I was there? He asked me to officiate it. Pretty cool stuff. So the reason I bring this up is because I think it's all about letting yourself shine and believing in other people and also believing in yourself. So the first thing you have to do if you want to help others shine is you got to let yourself shine. I was so angry at that time, and I was always swimming upstream. And I don't know if you know what I mean by swimming upstream, but you know that feeling you get when things are just hard and it's a struggle? That's swimming upstream against the current. And when you go with the flow of life, and when you're in sync, and when your beliefs are in alignment with your desires, there's just an ease and a flow. And you just let go of the oars, and the current just takes you where you want to go. And he helped me understand that. But the first thing I needed to do was take responsibility for my own actions and stop blaming everybody else. I had to believe in myself, and I had to have a connect first mentality. I had to connect to that pure, positive, loving energy. I would just ask you briefly, who is your Mr. Lewis? Think about who's the person that's always believed in you, regardless of the conditions, regardless of the circumstances. Was it a grandparent? Was it a parent? Was it a friend? Was it a teacher? Was it a coach? Was it a community member? Just jot that person's name down if you have a pen. Write that person's name down. The ideal team player. Has anybody ever seen or read this book? Patrick Lencioni? This book has really changed me, and I would encourage you to check it out. He talks about 3 virtues of an ideal team player: humble, hungry, and smart. Humble, hungry, and smart. Well, this reminds me of a time when I was teaching at McFarland Middle School. I was failing in 2 out of the 3. I was not humble and I was not smart. It was about 10 years ago. I was a new husband. I was a new father. I was a new teacher. I had 155 students coming through my classroom every day. I felt so overwhelmed. I felt like a crappy husband, a crappy dad, crappy teacher. And every day at 6 o'clock, I had to leave. I still had tons of stuff on my desk, but I had to leave because I know that my wife, who was also working full-time, was at home with our 9-month-old, waiting for me. I was at such a low that I drove home one night from McFarland, and I was so overwhelmed, I couldn't even pull in the driveway. I drove around our neighborhood for probably 15 or 20 minutes crying my eyes out, trying to figure out how I could be better at something. And at that time, I was very blessed to have a lot of friends. But you know what? I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes you feel like you're so far underwater, you just want to just turtle up and crawl in your shells. Anybody ever felt like that? That's that feeling that I had. I was evaluated that year by my principal, Dave. There was like 10 categories. 8 of them I was rated very high in. And he gave me 2 categories for growing opportunities. Which ones do you think I focused on? The 8 that were going well, or the 2 that weren't? The 2 that weren't. I got the evaluation. 2 weeks later, we had to meet again. I was just bitter. I was upset because I was trying to justify my actions. I was just very arrogant. I knew it all. And I was very embarrassed. Very difficult time. Fortunately, Dave's a better man than I. And it came around, and we resolved that, and I apologized. I made some changes that year, and the second year was off to a very good start. I decided I don't have to grade all these papers all the time, and I started to change some beliefs. And it made a huge, huge difference. Josh, can you help me for a second?
Yes, sir.
If you can pass these out for me, please. What Josh is passing out here is a cork, and I just want everybody to have one. And one of the things that I did was I made peace with where I was. I'm not the best husband right now. I'm not the best father. I'm not the best teacher. But I made peace with where I was. And I started to tell a new story. Tell a new story about what was going well in my life and not what wasn't going well in my life. So it was all about a change in focus. And once I started doing that, it was just like having a cork. And what's a cork designed to do when you put it in water? It's designed to float, right? It's designed to float. And I'd like you to think of us in the same way that we're designed to thrive. We're designed to do good. We're designed to float. But I was holding my cork under the water with all of the resistant thinking about things that I couldn't do and things that were going wrong. And I just want to give you this cork because I just want to remind you that all we have to do sometimes to let our cork float is just release some of the resistant thinking that we can get stuck on. So what I want to challenge you right now is just think about one thing in your life right now that you're thinking about that you could let go of and let your cork float. Just jot down one thing that's going on in your life right now that if you could let it go, it might be an uncontrollable, it might be a situation that you can't do anything about now anyhow. But what's one thing that you can do right now that will help your cork float? After that year at McFarland, I was at school in September, second year. I'm in a much better place. And all of a sudden, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I get a call from my wife. And she says, Mom fell with Sam. My mother-in-law, Sue, was watching our 9-month-old, and she fell over backwards. My father-in-law is disabled, and now my mother is disabled, and we have no one to watch our child. I literally left school that day. I went and became a full-time daycare provider for our 9-month-old, and I was also helping take care of my mother-in-law, who was laid up, and my father-in-law. And in an instant, I was overwhelmed again. The biggest thing that was overwhelming me is this parenting thing. I had had a lot of training with kids as far as a teacher goes, but this 9 or 10-month-old at the time was kicking my butt. And that's when I learned about love and logic. And I took a class, and it helped me immensely. And then I started teaching the class. And here's what I learned. I learned that rather than waiting for something else to change so that we can feel better, when we choose to feel better, then conditions start to change. And I learned how to pause in those situations, the power of the pause. I'll give an example. My son Sam and I were at Walgreens, and I was looking for a sympathy card. And Sam comes around the corner, "Dad, can I get handcuffs? I want these handcuffs, I want these handcuffs." And I said, "No." And I paused. And he kept on me, and he kept on me. "Dad, I want these handcuffs." And I said, "No." I said, "If you want them, you buy them." "Well, they're $5.99. I don't have that kind of money." And I said, "Well, then they have to stay." So he's on me the whole way up while I'm going up to check out the cards. "Dad, I really want these handcuffs." I said, "Sam, if you can buy them, that's fine." I said, "But just so you know, there's going to be tax. It'll probably be $6 and something." "Well, now there's $6 and something? Where am I going to get that kind of money? I'm 4 years old." You know? So we're at the register checking out, and I see him put something in his pocket. It was a piece of candy. And I said, "Sam, what did you just put in your candy? Or what did you just put in your pocket?" He says, "Well, it's just a piece of candy." I said, "Where'd you get that candy, Sam?" And he says, "Well, Grandma gave it to me." I said, "Are you telling me the truth?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I thought he told something from the thing there. And I said, "Do you know what happens to people that steal?" "Yeah, Dad, yeah, I know." I said, "Sam, people that steal go to jail." He says, "Yeah, I know, but at least they get handcuffs." It's just like, we need to leave, because I had no comeback for that. But love and logic was really, really good for me. And I had a father who, I taught the class for an LDS church in the west side of Madison here. And at the end of the class, people stood up, shared their experience with the class, and he stood up and he gave his testimony of just how the class had changed his life. And he got up and he started crying, because he said, "For the first time in my life, I realized that I don't always have to react. I can choose to respond differently." And he had the opportunity to change that cycle that was going on from parenting to parenting and parenting and generations of parenting in his life and everything. So, what did I learn from love and logic? Josh, are you here?
Yes, sir.
And ask you to pass those out too. To show you how to pass them out before. The power of the pause. The power of the pause, and how to flip the penny. And love them anyway. And what do I mean by flip the penny? Think of this penny, and think of the head side up as what you want. Heads up. That's what you want. Every subject is really two subjects. There's what's wanted and what's not what's wanted. The absence of what's wanted. And think of the head side as what you want. And think of the tail side as what you don't want. And in any situation, if you can just stop and pause and refocus, and focus on what you do want. Focus on what you do want, the head side of the penny. So we call that flipping the penny. And what that really comes down to is loving people anyway. Making that unconditional love more important than the behavior. So flip the penny. I guarantee you in the next few days, it's very possible that you're going to see more pennies in your experience and everything. Take a look at them and see if they're heads up. If they're not, find a way to flip them. Tuning in to people, pure positive loving energy. Hike. This winter we had this summer we had an opportunity to go out west and travel on vacation. I want to show you a little clip from our vacation. This is my wife.
How you doing, Mama? You're doing great. Nice job.
Pretty simple video, right? That was one of the most joyful moments I've ever had. One of the most joyful moments I've ever had. I actually had tears streaming down my face during that time. And here's why. Because 2 years ago, my wife couldn't walk. She had contracted something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And she had to learn how to walk. This was a couple weeks into her therapy. And then after she got done with the walker, she had to try to just go without the walker. And it looked like this. And this was weeks of recovery. I don't know if you could hear that, but she said, how come this is so much harder?
You don't have little things before, it's just very stable. And more it's moving. It's so you having to move over. You want to open the door?
So now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you this clip again. And I want to see if you can feel anything of what I was feeling when I saw this.
How you doing, Mama? You're doing great. Nice job.
I didn't know if she'd ever be able to do that again. There's a lot of people on that path that were probably looking at me like I was nuts. Stopping there, people walking around me, tears down my face. Got a little further up. This is no joke. This path, we're on the side of the cliff here. This was at the Grand Tetons. Yep, the Grand Tetons. So, I say to you, is there joy in every moment? There is joy in every moment if we're able to find it. If we're able to find it. And I really don't think you have to have something that extreme in order to be able to find it. You just have to tune in. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to officiate a funeral. And it all started because of that wedding that Mr. Lewis asked me to officiate. My good friend Ross asked me if I would ever want to do funerals, and I said, heck no. And I'm like, that's crazy. And so 3 years ago, my father-in-law passed away, and I had to give the eulogy. I didn't know if I could do it. One of the hardest things I'd ever done. I got up, gave the eulogy. The funeral director was my friend Ross, and he said, you have to try this. This was like on a Tuesday, and I said, I don't think I can. He said, it's not about you. It's about all the families that you can help. And he convinced me. I was on what station? What's in it for me? So I said, okay, here's the deal. If you find the right family, I'll try it one time. And he said, okay. The next day he called me, and he said, I got a family for you. What are you doing Saturday? And I said, okay. I wasn't quite ready for that to happen that fast. And all of a sudden I tried it. Afterwards, the daughter was in her 60s. Her mother was in her 80s. She came up to me and gave me this huge hug and told me thank you. And it was one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. One of the most satisfying, one of the most rewarding. And the reason why is because it taught me these three things about helping other people shine. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Seek to understand before being understood. And to the degree that you give others what they need, they will give you what you need. And you know what they needed at that time? They just needed someone to listen. They just needed someone to listen. So this is one of the most powerful strategies in helping other people shine that I could ever share with anybody, is listening. Listening. What I'd like to do right now is have everybody find a partner, somebody that maybe you introduced yourself to. And I want to ask you a very simple question. What brings you your greatest joy? What brings you your greatest joy? And just share that. It's only going to be 2 minutes, just quick. You share, let them share, but really be present and really listen. What brings you your greatest joy? Please find someone and share that. My hope is that you are sharing that, you are feeling that loving energy and that sense of that positive connection. That positive connection. Because when you love, when you listen to love and you love to listen, boom, there's connection. The path. My son, Sam, they had a nice little path across the street in the field. And they had these little things carved out where they could go and they could hide and they could bike in there, and they made little forts and all kinds of stuff. Then all of a sudden, one of the neighbor boys found it. Some of the neighbor boys found it, and all of a sudden he's complaining to me, and Sam says, "Dad, we lost our path. The boys found it. We can't do it anymore." And I said, "Well, what's wrong?" And I kind of got upset, to be honest with you, at first. And then I thought, that's not what I want. Let me flip the penny on this. I was looking at the tail side. And so I asked him, I said, "Well, Sam, why are you so upset about this?" And he said, "Well, I want our path back. We made our path." And I said, "Well," "why do you like that path?" "Well, it was so much fun. We could go in there and we could do things. We had privacy." And I got him focused on the head side of the penny. And I said, "Well, maybe we could build a new path." And he says, "Well, I don't know how to do that." And I said, "Well, maybe we can figure it out." So I took the weed whacker and went across the street. He didn't know I was doing it. The most interesting thing happened. As I was going through, I noticed that the path was already there. I was just trimming it out, and I felt like I was being guided. And in all these cool areas. And it was there the whole time, right across from our house. But we never knew it was there. And so I then shared it with him. He walked up to the grass, and he couldn't see the path. He couldn't see the path until I showed him, and I said, "It's here." He said, "I don't see it." I said, "It's here. Trust me. It's here." And then finally he saw it, and he had this big smile on his face. And he had so much fun. And what that taught me is that the path that we're looking for is always there. It's just, how do we realize it? And sometimes when we can't see it, we have to feel our way to it. We have to feel our way to it. And I think there's something even more enjoyable than finding your own path. And that is enjoying it together. Because as we were going through this path, he said, "Dad, can I get on your back?" And I said, "Sure." And so he was on my back, and we're walking the path together, enjoying that path together. Tuning in to that pure, positive, loving energy. 2 weekends ago, I was up in LaCrosse, visiting some family. We're in a candy shop up there at LaCrosse. Josh, you might know what it is. It's down there by the LaCrosse Center.
Why would you think I know where a candy shop is?
The Pearl. It was the Pearl. We're in the Pearl. It's this cool, very cool candy shop. And in comes these two ladies. They're a little bit older, and they were riding the big boat that stopped at LaCrosse on the river there. And I noticed they had these name tags on, and so I like to talk to people and connect and meet new people. And so I'm talking to Jean, and she says, "Are you in line?" And I said, "No, I'm not in line at all." I said, "Are you part of the boat crew?" And she's like, "Yeah, we're riding the boat." And I said, "Oh," and her friend had gone to the counter. She's like, "That's my friend Gloria." And I said, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yeah, we took this trip together." I said, "Well, that's nice." She said, "Yeah, we've known each other over 75 years. We've been friends for over 75 years. I said, "Really? Wow." She said, "Yeah, we met each other in 9th grade. I said, "You've known each other for over 75 years and you met each other in 9th grade?" She's like, "Yeah, and we have the same birthdays. And next month, we're going to be 91 years old on the same day." I said, "Really? That's extraordinary." I said, "Where do you live?" She said, "Well, I live in LA. She lives in Seattle. We just decided to take a boat trip." I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. So my wife has always given me a hard time about talking to strangers and everything. So she's like, you're the only person I know that feels like they have to make friends with the people going through the drive-through restaurant, and stuff. So anyhow, we leave, we walk around the corner, and we're sitting there. I'm not kidding. We're looking at this statue, and all of a sudden, I hear someone say, Doug, honey? And I turn around, and it's Gloria. She needs help with her phone. She's trying to take a picture, and she needs help with her phone. I said, I'd be happy to help you with that, Gloria. So I talked to him, and I said, this is just so amazing. You're going to be 91 years old. You live on different parts of the coast over there, and you come together for this. And it was just like such a beautiful display of positive connection. Just such loving energy between these two. So I actually took a picture of them, and I said, hey, would you like to be on YouTube? And they're like, what? And she's like, sure. And so this is Gloria on the left, and this is Jean on the right. And they are going to be 91 years old on October 20th. And I thought that was one of the neatest things ever. So there's some inspiration for you right there. Tuning in to people, pure positive, loving energy. This is where it kind of comes around. Hopefully you've seen some of the connections that I'm trying to make throughout the presentation here. But when I was going through that rough time in McFarland a few years ago, I have a friend named Brad who was very helpful. When I had to stop teaching, Brad helped me get into officiating. I also had the privilege to work with Brad's son, who was a marvelous teacher, and his daughter-in-law, who was also a marvelous teacher when I was teaching at Belleville. And Brad was just incredibly helpful to me at a really hard time. Brad and I met a long time ago at a basketball camp that I was directing. Brad was a coach, and he had brought his daughter down there. And his daughter was in 6th grade, and her name was Molly. And I remember Molly as this little 6th grader, and she was an awesome basketball player, but she was just this adorable girl, and just so sweet and so positive. And I had a chance to get to know Brad and Molly and her family. Well, the reason that I bring that up is because Molly is now an incredible mother. She's also a teacher. She's married to a wonderful man named Matt, and they have 2 beautiful children. Colton is the baby they just had 4 or 5 months ago, I believe. And Brody is their 3-year-old. And if you haven't made the connection yet, that's the reason you're here. So when I had an opportunity to do this today, my heart was full, because this family inspires me so much. They are going through a very difficult time right now, but they are still trying to find the joy in every moment. This is Brody, and he loves dinosaurs. He's going to be having a roar. It's a fundraiser this Sunday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. 11 o'clock to 6. Did I get the time right? This is going to be at the Madison Curling Club. Feel free to step in here, Jeff, if I screwed up. Which is over off of Stoughton Road in McFarland. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for games and kids' activities and things like that. There's going to be also silent auction. You can go to brodysroar.com right now if you'd like to participate in some of those things. They're selling t-shirts. From the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank you all for being here today. Matt, what you did covering the food to help this family, thank you so much. Lance and Lisa, thank you so much. Yola's, if you're not familiar with what they do at Yola's, I personally want to thank a good friend of mine, Jim Dietzen, who's sitting back here. Last year after I spoke, Jim heard me speak, and he wanted to meet me for coffee. And we have founded a wonderful working relationship since. And where we met for coffee that day, Lance, you don't know this, was at Yola's. And Yola's is such a beautiful spot for so many people to connect. So thank you for everything that you do. I also want to personally thank the Leading with Power organization for giving me this opportunity, and most importantly for covering the costs associated with having this event here today so that all the money could go to Brody and his family. At the end of the day, I really do believe that we're all in this together. I really believe that we're all in this together. So let's celebrate life. Let's dream free. Let's encourage each other. Let's live life as unconditionally as we can. And let's help each other shine. Thank you very much for being here today.